Welcome to the Kick-Ass Talks podcast. I'm your host, business and marketing mentor, Paula Hemmings, and thank you so much for joining me. So this week, I'm sticking to the theme of podcasting, and I'm going to be telling you all about why you should be using podcasting to actually market your business. So if this is something that you've thought about or are considering doing, or you might be actually doing it at the moment, this podcast is definitely for you. And as I mentioned in last week's podcast, a few months ago, low-key celebrated 1 year of podcasting. And podcasting has been a great marketing tool for me. It's helped me position myself as an expert. It's helped people just to hear about who I am, find out who I am for in places that possibly I couldn't have reached in another format. Podcasting is growing all the time. It's kind of a new media. Yes, it has been around for a few years now, but it's something that is growing on year upon year. So each year, podcast listeners are growing by 10 to 20%, which is pretty good. Podcast fans on average listen to about 5 shows per week. I am not in this average because I listen to a hell of a lot more shows than 5 a week. I probably could listen to about 15 to 20. I literally listen to podcasts a lot. I listen to podcasts in the kitchen. I listen to podcasts when I'm in the bath. I listen to podcasts in the car. I listen to podcasts in the gym. Sometimes, not all the times, but I listen to them while I'm in bed as well. And definitely while I'm cleaning the house. So people are out there listening to your podcast. I mean, you are listening to this, so other people are also listening to these podcasts. The average podcast listener subscribes to about 6 podcasts, so that podcast could be one of yours if you are appealing to them and they are your target audience. And 85% of listeners will listen to all of your podcasts, which is great because you don't want people just listening to the beginning and dropping off. You want them to actually listen to all of your podcasts. And with podcast stats, even if someone listens to your podcast for about 5 seconds, it still counts as a download. So you can be secure in the knowledge knowing that 85% of your listeners are actually listening to all of your podcasts. So that's pretty cool. So one of the reasons why you should be podcasting to market your business is that podcast subscribers are highly engaged. You are able to market and provide valuable information on almost a one-to-one basis. Although obviously it's going out to thousands of people, you are talking directly to your target audience into their ears, into those little headphones, into their earbuds, into their Beats headphones, into whatever. You are directly in your listeners' ear holes. And that is a pretty powerful thing to do. And if you know your target audience well, you are able to talk to their issues, to what's keeping them up at night, or if it's more of an entertainment thing, you know your audience and you can cater to that audience, and you are able to keep that audience really engaged. Another reason why you should use podcasting to market your business is that you can actually create your own ads within this podcast. So you might have noticed me do this a time or two when I mentioned that you should check out the kaentrepreneur.co.uk website, and I actually mention it at the end of every single podcast. But that's because it's my podcast and I am able to do that. So that is a great way to market your business. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to rush over to your website or to your product or whatever it is that you have every single time you mention it, but it's creating a nice bit of brand awareness and making people aware of what you do and how you can help solve problems for them. Number 3 is that you get to position yourself as an expert or an authority in your industry. So if you know everything in the world about making green smoothies, for example, people are going to see you as that go-to person in your industry, because you can tell them what flavors to use, why they should be using certain ingredients, how this certain ingredient's going to do these wonderful things for you. You are able to be that person. My thing is that I like to talk about marketing, business strategy, inspiration. That's where I become that expert in that industry. So what is it that you can be an expert in, and what could you podcast about? Number 4 is that you do get to develop that know, like, and trust. You actually build a relationship with your podcast listeners, even if you never hear from them. But they get to know who you are. They get to have a flavour of your personality, as long as you are being your true self. You know, let's not pretend here. Let's just be ourselves when we're podcasting. And people get to build a relationship with you, which is brilliant. So that helps them to make a decision to then buy your products and services when you've got something to offer or some value to give to your audience. And number 5 is that podcasting brings traffic to your website, which is great. So as I mentioned earlier, you can create your own ads where you're driving people to your website. You actually also can have your podcast on your website, which will drive traffic to your website. You can have links in the show notes. You can also offer things like downloads and things like that. So people will actually come along to your show notes and then go to whatever web links that you're telling them to do if you're giving them something really interesting to hear. And also, podcasting is highly engaging, but it's in a unique format. It's audio, so it's minimal concentration is required. It's not like a blog, and I'm not putting down any of these other forms of marketing or media because they all work, but it's not like a blog where you have to sit down and read. You could be walking around. You could be, as I mentioned, in the gym, like as I do. You could be in your car. It's really easy to consume. There's no video to watch unless you're doing a video podcast, but most podcasts are just audio. So you're just listening. You could be doing your work at the same time. You could be doing anything, but it's so easy to consume. So it's that unique format, which is really different about podcasting. And the final reason is that it's a great opportunity to get your voice and your brand message heard. How powerful is that? What is it that's unique about your brand? I guess what's unique about my brand is that it's definitely not corporate, but I've got the same kick-ass information that I can provide to you that someone who's a lot more boring than me, who's a lot more grey and speaks a little bit like this and is like, oh yes and no and blah blah blah. Yeah, that's a bit boring. Who needs that? I mean, yes, that will appeal to somebody else, but not to my kick-ass audience. So that's a little bit of my brand. Yes, I can be a little bit, I don't know, I was going to say crazy, but a bit cray sometimes. But the knowledge is there, which hopefully you can take away from this. And that's a bit of my branding, my flavour. That's a bit of who Paula is. And that's what you are also able to do, because people will relate to you because of who you are. Remember, people buy people, and if people like you first, they'll be more likely to like your products and your services. If they don't like you, why are they going to be even buying from you? Who buys from people that they don't like? I literally will walk out of a shop really wanting something because I didn't like the person who was trying to serve me. You know, if someone's rude to you, you don't want to give them your money, do you? So people will relate to you. Don't worry about not relating to all. I'm sure there's people that listen to this and think, oh my God, listen to that Birmingham accent. I cannot stand the Birmingham accent. Let me get off this podcast ASAP. But then there's going to be other people who think, oh, listen to that accent. It's hilarious. It's funny. It's warming. It's whatever. So we're never going to suit everybody, and that's okay. Those who are for me, like me, and those who don't hope come across too many that don't, but you know, we're never going to like everybody, and that is okay. So people get to really just relate to you, your brand, and your brand messaging. And that's a couple of reasons there why you should be using podcasting to market your business. It's great. It can be fairly inexpensive once you've set up, and it does take a little bit of time, but it's worthwhile the time investment when you're considering the wide scope of audience that you can actually reach. So if you have any questions about today's episode, do feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at Paula Hemmings or on Instagram at Paula Hemmed. Join the Facebook group Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs, or even just join the Facebook page. I'm literally everywhere apart from Snapchat. I am on Snapchat, but I don't use it a lot. I'm all over social media. Type Paula Hemmings, Kick-Ass Talks or Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs, and you will come across me somewhere. And as I mentioned last week, the masterclass for this month in the Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs website and membership site is actually all about podcasting. So if you want to learn more about the how-tos of podcast, how to set up your podcast, how to plan for your podcast, how to find hosting, about editing, all that sort of good stuff, as well as having the support from me and everything else that comes with being a member of the Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs Club, do check out kaentrepreneurs.co.uk. Take care, and I'll catch up with you soon. Do you need help and support with the marketing and business strategy in your business? Join the exclusive membership club, the Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs Club, for entrepreneurs who want unlimited email support, monthly masterclasses, guest speaker workshops, mastermind sessions, accountability bodies, unlimited email support, access to resource libraries, and much more. Check out the kaentrepreneurs.co.uk. That's kaentrepreneurs.co.uk. I'll see you there.